This is our GMBN Tech Essential series, where we look at varying components on the bike. This week we're going to be focusing on the headset, an often misunderstood or underappreciated part of our bike. So we're going to look at the individual components that make up our headsets, as well as how to keep yours running smooth and maintaining it. Headsets are often overlooked when we talk about the specs and componentry of it on our bikes, but a smooth, well-maintained headset will not only run so much quieter, but it will feel so much nicer through the handlebars. Headsets come in varying shapes or sizes, but they all have the basic same essentials. There are two different types of bearings that we're going to be talking about today. There is a third type, which I'm not going to go into too much detail here, which is basically what we call a threadless headset, which is like these ball bearings, but without the cage. Now, on our seal bearings, they tend to be more robust, they're better sealed from the elements, they run smoother for longer, but they're also a stiffer interface, so when you're really hard wearing downhill bikes, this would usually be the one spec'd. Each bearing comes with angles on the inner and outer race, and that's specified normally on the side, and that's really important. If you're running the incorrect angle, your headset bearing will be floating around in there, and the interface won't be pairing up correctly. Similarly, on these cage bearings, if they're over-torqued, they can cause excess wear and pit the cone they're riding up against. On modern frames, you'll often find that these cups are actually integrated into the frame. Now this is a benefit in some ways, it's lighter. It can also mean you can get your stack height lower, but I still think that the old cup and cone headsets still have a place. Now, some people find that they can eke extra life out of bearings by packing them with grease when they are worn. That's not something I really subscribe to. I think that if you put too much grease into a bearing, what actually happens is the balls stop rolling and actually begin to slide, which yet again creates excess wear. Now, I think that when a bearing is worn, it's worn. It's a consumable part. It's like a chain or it's like brake pads. I'm not somebody that kind of thinks they owe you anything. I think when they're done, you should just replace them. And honestly, you can sometimes make them feel so smooth in the workshop, but as soon as you put some preload through there, you get out riding, you'd be amazed what noises can come out. And you can check for wear. Often this inner race will have a bit of play this way, which you can really feel the front end. Obviously with a steerer going through it, it magnifies it quite a lot. So if it's worn, just replace it, don't hold any qualms. So no matter what the headset, they all follow the same basic theory. So this is your crown race, which sits just on top of the fork CSU there, which is the crown steerer unit. And that's basically the angled interface. Secure that bearing on the bottom. From then, they slot into your cup or the lower bottom of your headset in your frame, just like so. And that's all the headset is on the bottom half. On your top half of your headset, it actually builds out symmetrically. So we start with the cup, which sits in the frame, bearings, this one comes with a little seal, and then you've got the inner interface there, which slots on, and an expanding wedge. And they'll all basically follow the similar principle. Sometimes all those units can come as one piece, but it all does the same job. The last piece is your star-fangled nut. Now this sits in your steerer. Now this bolt gets hammered down into the steerer, and although it can go down, it can't come back up. So it makes it perfect for applying preload, which you do via this bolt in the top cap. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to set up the headset on this bike and hopefully be able to provide some insight for how it all works. So I've removed the front wheel, I've taken off the brake, I'm going to release these pinch bolts and take off the tension and get the fork out of the frame. So here we have my forks removed from the bike and all of the headset componentry taken off. Now at the bottom you can see the crown race, which as you can see is an angled surface. So in this bike, like most modern mountain bikes, it uses a sealed bearing system. Like I said earlier on, this aids with not only sealing the elements out, but also stiffness. So if you ever need to remove your crown race, you have got the option to slot a screwdriver in there and twist and it'll pop up. Alternatively, you can slot a screwdriver in the back there and gently push it up. Now you want to be careful of that because you often see people with these horrible marked forks where they've been just hammering at it and it looks kind of a bit not that nice. So try and stay away from it. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to stack each component of our headset together. Now there's kind of varying different schools of thought when it comes to greasing your headset and how much you should apply. Now what I'm going to do is put a nice light skimming of grease on all the components, all the bearing interfaces. Now this will stop water corrosion whilst not accumulating loads of dirt. Sometimes you can get dirt trapped in the headset, and the creaking you hear is those grains of dirt being crushed over and over again. So we're going to go for hopefully a happy medium and just put a nice skimming on there. That crown race is now nicely covered in grease, like I said, not too much, and we're just going to slot that bearing on top. After, make sure this interface is nice and clean in the headset cup there. I'm just going to put an equal amount, a nice skimming, nothing too crazy. Once your fork is slotted into the frame, often you can quite simply run out of hands. So what I like to do, just run a toe strap through the frame, underneath the fork, like so, just to secure it in place. So we have our upper bearing here. See it again with the interface on the outside and the bottom, and on the inside at the top. Just gonna get a little bit of grease, just skim it on there, and just drop it over. Might take a little bit of wiggling, but it should snap in. And those nowadays are made to a really nice tolerance fit. The next part of the headset is this wedge here, which is a bit bearing interface as well, don't forget. So make sure also just a nice skim in. That can also click in. Now, some headsets come with these secondary plastic seals, which do just slot on over, just to give the bearing any extra protection really against dirt coming in from the outside. Then comes the last piece of our assembly, which just slots over just there. You can be quite finicky with that one, and make sure you get your branding all nice and lined up. Next we have our headset spacers. Now these are a really important part, and I'm going to show you why. Now as a very crude demonstration, I've removed too many spacers here. So as you can imagine, no matter how much I do up this bolt and it pressurizes the system, it's never going to remove that play there. So when we put the correct amount of spacers back on, this top cap and bolt will actually adjust the preload of the system. And what that's going to do is it's actually going to pull the steerer up to add tension to the system, whilst it's really important that it leaves a gap between the top cap and the top of the steerer. So if your fork is sitting flush or even proud of that top spacer, you're not going to get your headset tight. It's for this reason that having a spacer sit above the stem is always a good idea. It actually makes sure that not only does your stem have maximum contact with the steerer, but there's no embarrassment, egg on face moments when you develop play mid-ride because there wasn't enough tension in the system. So now the system is nicely kind of torqued up, just enough to remove play. You really don't want to be over tightening that. If you're using the spanner down here, you've probably gone a bit wrong. It's also a good opportunity. Now is the time to get your top cap decals aligned. That one is important, and I don't care what you say. And for me, I'll always put in the little safety of just twisting my handlebars, because then I know these bolts aren't done up. So I've put my front wheel back on and reconnected my brake. Now, as you remember, I had my handlebars deliberately off center, just as a reminder. So what I'm going to do, just stand over the bike. Once I get them vaguely straight, then we're just going to make sure that it's nipped up, and while straightening the handlebars, I haven't taken any torque off or added any extra on. And a good tip with straightening your front wheel is don't do it off the stem and the wheel this way, do it off the crown of your forks and your handlebars that way, and you'll get them nice and straight. Even a donut like me can do it. With your stem bolts, with any pinch bolts really, it's really important that you only tighten the bolt until it's no longer the looser of the two bolts. So you just go 1, 2. Yet again, please don't be hanging off the Allen key, you really don't need to be. Then she's all ready to go, look at that. So that was the GMBN Tech Essentials on headset maintenance. Now if that has just merely whetted your appetite, click here for the Essentials playlist, and don't forget to like and subscribe.